The sound of distant voices echoed off the damp stone walls, sending a shiver down Mark's spine. He paused, his heart racing, the warm afternoon sun of Colorado replaced by the shadows of the old mine shaft. The rusted gates, bent and twisted, hinted at a break-in, something that felt all too wrong. The last place he expected to hear human voices was here, in a silent graveyard of old miners' dreams. Mark took a deep breath, the musty air filling his lungs as he cautiously stepped forward, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the darkness. Each step was a reminder of the countless hours he had spent hiking through the vast wilderness, where the only sounds were the rustle of leaves and the call of distant birds. Here, it was different. Here, the air was thick with secrets, and he felt like an intruder in a world that had long forgotten the light. He gripped the flashlight tighter, the cold metal sending a shudder through him. The voices were faint but persistent, weaving in and out, as if beckoning him to discover whatever lay hidden below. Doubt crept in. Was he really ready to unravel this mystery? His life had already been a tapestry of grief and loss since the death of his son. The thought of confronting more shadows sent a chill down his spine. Pushing aside his unease, he descended the rusted ladder. The rungs creaked under his weight, each groan pulling him deeper into the mine's embrace. The faint smell of burnt oil mixed with the mustiness of old earth wrapping around him like a shroud. Mark tried to steady his racing heart. He couldn't be afraid. Not here, not now. This was just another part of his job as a ranger, a protector of the land and its stories. As he reached the bottom, his flashlight's beam illuminated remnants of life, a thin mattress pushed against the wall, its fabric frayed and stained. Half-eaten meals littered the ground, a grim reminder that someone had been living here recently. But it was the sight of a child's jacket hanging on a rusty nail that froze him in place. The emblem of a small-town baseball team stared back at him like a ghost from his past, a vivid reminder of his son's laughter on the field. Mark's heart tightened. Had someone been hiding here? Why did it feel so personal? As he picked up the jacket, memories cascaded over him like a wave. His son's laughter, the summer afternoons spent coaching, the joy of watching him play. The jacket was a painful relic, its fabric worn thin, much like his heart. He glanced around, the darkness closing in as the voices faded. Who had been here? And what had they been searching for? A sinking dread settled in his chest, the thought of a lost soul hiding in this forgotten place, intertwining with his own fears of letting go. Should he report it, close off the mine, or wait for the occupant to return? The uncertainty hung heavy in the air, leaving him struggling for breath. As the echoes of the voices lingered in his mind, Mark realized this descent was not just into the mine, but into himself, into memories he had tried so hard to bury. Would he confront the truth hidden in this darkness? Would he dare to face the past he had been running from? The mine felt alive, and he was now part of its story, woven into the fabric of what had been lost. Mark stood frozen, the child's jacket clutched in his hand, feeling the weight of the fabric, the memories it held. The dim light from his flashlight flickered, casting unsettling shadows that danced around him. He couldn't shake the thought of who had been living here, what kind of life had been led within these crumbling walls. The mine had once been a bustling place, filled with miners chasing dreams of fortune, but now it was a crypt for lost hopes and forgotten souls. He forced himself to take a step back, the sound of his heavy boots echoing in the silence. The air was stale, an oppressive reminder of abandonment. Mark had dedicated his life to protecting this land, but now he felt like a trespasser in both the mine and his own heart. Back at the ranger station, he was known for his unwavering resolve, a man who could navigate difficult trails and harsh weather. But this was different. This was not a trail marked on a map. This was an emotional labyrinth, and he was lost. He remembered the last time he had found himself in such a place. The day he had to confront the truth about his son's death. That day had shattered his world, leaving him adrift, struggling to find that same passion for life he once had. He took a deep breath, focusing on the jacket again. Memories flooded back, coaching his son's little league team, the sound of laughter mixing with the crack of the bat, the pride swelling in his chest as he watched the boy grow. The jacket had been a symbol, a badge of honor for the young players, but now it felt like a ghost, a haunting echo of what he had lost. Mark turned his attention back to the mine, scanning the space around him. There were remnants of a life lived in the shadows, a makeshift camp with a thin mattress, empty food cans huddled together like ghosts of meals shared, and the flickering lantern that seemed to taunt him with the question of who had been here before him. The mine wasn't just a shelter, it was a refuge for someone searching for solace, much like he had done after he lost his son. He picked up one of the half-eaten cans, turning it over in his hands. It looked like it had been opened recently, the metal edges still sharp. He felt a pang of curiosity mixed with dread. Who had been living here? Why had they left so quickly? The questions began to swirl in his mind, each one like a stone dropped into a still pond, sending ripples of uncertainty outward. As he continued to explore the small space, he noticed something glinting in the corner, partially hidden beneath a pile of debris. He knelt down to investigate, moving aside old wrappers and dirt, revealing a small tin box. It was battered and worn, but still intact. Mark's heart raced as he lifted the box, feeling its weight in his hands. It held the promise of answers, or perhaps more questions. With a swift motion, he opened the lid. Inside were folded letters, their edges yellowed with age. He recognized the handwriting at once, the familiar scrawl of a child's hand. "Dad, I tried." The words echoed in his mind, drawing him in like a moth to a flame. Each letter was a cry for help, a desperate plea that made his heart ache. The first letter began with a recounting of mundane days, tales of school and friends, mixed with a longing for a father who had somehow slipped away. The words dripped with vulnerability and hope, a stark contrast to the dark surroundings. As he read, it felt as if the child was speaking directly to him, sharing their struggles and dreams, and it pierced through him like ice. "Dad, I tried to be good. I wanted you to see me play. I wanted you to notice." Each letter unfolded like a chapter of a story Mark never knew he needed to read. The child spoke of victories on the field, of moments that had gone unnoticed, of feelings that had never been expressed. The longing for connection was palpable, a mirror reflecting his own heartache. "My friends don't understand why you're not around. I tried to tell them, but they don't get it. I miss you, Dad." With every line, the weight in Mark's chest grew heavier. He thought of how he had shut down emotionally after his son's death, how he had distanced himself from those who cared for him. He realized he had been living in a self-imposed prison, one that had kept him from reaching out, from healing. He forced himself to breathe, trying to push the flood of emotions back, but it was useless. The walls he had built were crumbling and he felt exposed, vulnerable. In that moment, he understood that this child, whoever they were, had been reaching out for something he had denied himself for far too long. Tears stung his eyes as he clutched the letters, feeling as if he were holding onto pieces of his own lost boy. Would he ever be able to forgive himself for not being there when it mattered? Would he ever find the strength to reach out to this child, to the one who had been searching for a father figure in the shadows? The thought terrified him, yet it also ignited a flicker of hope. Mark took a moment to collect himself, the silence in the mine wrapping around him like a blanket. Perhaps it was time to confront the past, to reconcile the pieces of his heart that had been shattered. The voices he had heard earlier were not just echoes from the mine. They were the voices of his own grief, his own longing for connection. With renewed determination, he stood up, placing the box of letters carefully back down. It was time to leave the mine, to step back into the light. But before he did, he took one last look around, hoping to find something, anything, that might give him more clarity about the child who had been here. Just then, he noticed something on the far wall, something painted there in faded colors. As he drew closer, he could make out a crude mural, a baseball field. Players were drawn in exaggerated poses, each one holding a bat or glove. At the center of the field, a child stood, arms raised in triumph. Mark's heart sank. This was the child's world, their dreams cast in strokes of paint on a forgotten wall. It was a world that had been filled with hope and potential, a world that had sadly transformed into a sanctuary of sorrow. He traced his fingers over the mural, feeling the rough texture of the paint beneath his fingertips. This was a reminder of what could have been, of what had been lost. In that moment, he understood that the mine was not just a hiding place. It was a testament to dreams unfulfilled, a canvas of lives intertwined with his own. Mark stepped back, turning toward the entrance. He took a deep breath, the air outside feeling fresh and alive. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows through the trees. He realized he had a choice to make, to continue living in isolation or to extend his hand towards someone who needed it. As he emerged from the depths of the mine, the light poured over him, illuminating the way forward. He felt the weight of the past still lingering, but there was also a spark of hope igniting within him. Perhaps reaching out to this child, this lost soul, could lead him toward healing. He looked back at the mine, a mixture of gratitude and sorrow filling him. It was a place of darkness, but it had also illuminated the path to understanding. With every step he took away from the shadows, Mark felt a little more like himself, a little more ready to confront the challenges that lay ahead. He climbed into his truck, the engine rumbling to life as he drove away from the mine. The familiar landscape unfolded around him, the tall pines swaying gently in the evening breeze. Yet, despite the beauty of the surroundings, Mark felt a heaviness in his heart. He couldn't shake the feeling of urgency. He needed to find the child who had left the letters. He began to formulate a plan. There had to be people in the nearby town who could help. Perhaps there were reports of a missing child or a family that had recently fallen on hard times. The thought filled him with determination. He would not let this child slip through the cracks as he had done with his own son. As he drove into town, the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple. Mark's mind raced with possibilities. He had always been a man of action, a protector of the land, and now he needed to be a protector of a different kind. He parked outside the diner, a small, unassuming place where the familiar sounds of laughter and clinking dishes spilled out onto the sidewalk. The bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside, and the comforting aroma of coffee and fried food enveloped him. It felt like stepping back into a world he had long neglected. Mark approached the counter, where a waitress with kind eyes and a warm smile greeted him. "Hey there, what can I get for you?" He hesitated, then leaned closer, lowering his voice. "I'm looking for information about a child, a boy, maybe around 10 or 11, who might have been living in the old mine. I found some letters addressed to his dad." The waitress's expression shifted as she leaned in, clearly intrigued. "The mine? You're not the first to mention it. There's been talk about kids sneaking around there. Some folks think it's just a rumor, but others..." She trailed off, glancing around the diner. "What's the boy's name?" Mark shook his head. "I don't know. The letters didn't say. But I need to find him. He's been writing to his father, and it sounds like he's in a tough spot." The waitress nodded, her expression serious. "You should talk to Tom, the sheriff. He's been keeping an eye on those kids. Might even know something about a missing boy." "Thank you," Mark said, his heart racing at the thought of finally finding this child. "Where can I find him?" "Just down the street at the station. You can't miss it. Good luck." She turned back to her other customers, but Mark could see the concern in her eyes. He stepped back outside, the night air cool against his skin. The stars were twinkling above, and for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of purpose. He drove to the sheriff's station, his heart pounding with anticipation. As he parked, he took a moment to collect his thoughts. He knew he had to approach this carefully. He didn't want to come off as frantic, but he couldn't let the opportunity slip away. He had to find this boy, to connect with him in a way he had failed to do with his own son. He walked into the station, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. A few officers were gathered around a desk, and Tom, a middle-aged man with a weathered face and kind eyes, looked up as Mark entered. "Evening," Tom said, nodding in greeting. "Sheriff, I need your help," Mark said, urgency threading his voice. "I found something in the old mine, letters from a boy to his father. I think he's been living there, and I'm worried about him." Tom's expression shifted, interest peaked. "Letters, you say? How did you come across them?" Mark took a deep breath, recounting his discovery in the mine, the child's jacket and the mural. As he spoke, he could see Tom's eyes narrowing, processing the information. "Sounds like we might have a situation," Tom finally said, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "We've had reports of kids going missing, and some have been seen hanging around that area. I'll send a couple of deputies to check it out." "Can I come with you?" Mark asked, his voice rising slightly. "I can help. I've spent years in these woods. I can track them." Tom nodded slowly. "All right, but let's tread carefully. If we're dealing with a child in distress, we don't want to spook them." Mark felt a rush of adrenaline. This was it. He was finally taking action, stepping up in a way he hadn't in years. With Tom leading the way, they gathered a couple of deputies, and soon they were in a squad car, driving back toward the mine. The weight in Mark's chest shifted, morphing from fear into determination. He was going to find that boy, and he was going to do everything in his power to help him. The drive was filled with a nervous energy, the officers discussing strategies as they approached the familiar turnoff for the mine. Mark's heart raced as they parked and got out, the cool night air filling his lungs. He could feel something stirring within him, a fire igniting that had long been dormant. "Let's move quietly," Tom instructed, gesturing for them to follow him. They crept toward the mine entrance, the darkness looming ahead. As they stepped inside, Mark felt the familiar chill of the mine wrap around him. The voices he had heard echoed in his mind once more, urging him onward. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were close, that the boy was somewhere in the shadows, waiting for someone to understand. The group spread out, each officer shining their flashlights into the corners of the cavernous space. Mark's heart pounded as he moved deeper, searching for any sign of the child. The letters had sparked something within him, a longing to connect, to reach out, to make a difference. "Mark," Tom called softly from further down the mine. Mark turned toward the voice, his heart racing with anticipation. He hurried over, the beam of his flashlight illuminating the ground ahead. When he reached Tom, he found him crouched by a small opening in the wall, partially hidden by debris. "Look at this," Tom said, motioning Mark closer. Peering into the opening, Mark felt a rush of emotions. There, just inside the crevice, was a small backpack. It was worn and dusty, but it was unmistakably a child's. "This has to belong to him," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper. Tom nodded, pulling the backpack out carefully. "We'll take this back to the station. If we find the boy, this could help us piece together his story." Mark's heart sank as he took in the backpack's well-worn state. It was a testament to the life the child had been living in secret, but there was also determination brewing inside him. They were getting closer, and he wouldn't stop until they found him. As they began to search the mine further, the atmosphere shifted. The air felt charged, as if the mine itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. And in that stillness, Mark could almost hear the boy's voice calling out to him, a soft whisper woven into the fabric of the night. "Dad, I tried." It echoed in his mind, a haunting reminder of everything he had lost. But this time, it was a call to action. Mark felt a resolve growing within him. He would not let another child experience the pain of abandonment, not if he could help it. With each step deeper into the mine, he moved closer not just to the boy, but also to himself, ready to confront the shadows that had haunted him for so long. The child needed him, and in helping him, Mark would finally begin to heal his own wounds. And as he pressed forward, he felt the weight of the past start to lift, replaced by a sense of purpose and connection, a promise that he would not let fear hold him back any longer. As Mark, Tom, and the other deputies ventured deeper into the mine, the air grew heavy with anticipation. Each step echoed off the cavern walls, mixing with the faint sound of dripping water somewhere in the darkness. Mark's heart raced as he thought about the child who may still be lurking in the shadows, hiding from a world he seemed to feel had abandoned him. It was a feeling Mark understood all too well. They made their way past remnants of old mining equipment, rusted and forgotten, relics of ambition that had long since faded. Mark's flashlight flickered occasionally, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls, reminding him of the ghosts of the past, both those who had toiled in this mine and the memories of his son that haunted him daily. "Stay alert," Tom whispered, breaking the tension that hung thick in the air. "We don't know if anyone is down here besides us." Mark nodded, his mind racing as they swept through the dimly lit paths. As they approached a wider chamber, Mark noticed something glinting in the corner of his eye. He turned his flashlight toward it, revealing a small backpack, worn and dusty, but unmistakably a child's. "Over here!" he called, his voice echoing in the stillness. Tom and the deputies hurried over, their flashlights illuminating the backpack. As Tom bent down to examine it, Mark felt a mix of hope and dread wash over him. "This must belong to the boy," he said, crouching beside Tom. "What do you think he's doing down here?" one of the deputies asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know, but we need to find him," Mark replied, urgency lacing his words. "He could be in danger." Tom unzipped the bag, revealing a few worn clothes, a half-full water bottle, and a crumpled-up piece of paper. He pulled it out, smoothing it against his thigh. "Looks like a note," he said, squinting to read it under the beam of his flashlight. The note was hastily scrawled in a child's handwriting. "Dad, I'm sorry. I tried to be good. I waited, but you didn't come. I hope you're okay. I love you." Mark's heart clenched. The pain in those words echoed loudly in his chest. "He's been waiting for his father," he murmured, a wave of empathy crashing over him. "He's probably scared," Tom replied, glancing around the chamber. "We need to find him before he gets too far away." They quickly gathered around, formulating a plan. "We'll split into small groups," Tom instructed. "Mark, you and I will check the far end of the mine. The rest of you search this area and call out if you find anything." Mark nodded, feeling a sense of purpose ignite within him. He and Tom moved deeper into the mine, their footsteps echoing as they ventured into the unknown. The darkness seemed to press in around them, but Mark didn't hesitate. He felt a deep connection to the child. They were both searching for something, a way out of their pain, a connection that had been lost. As they turned a corner, they entered another chamber larger than the last. The walls were covered in graffiti and faded drawings, the remnants of other souls who had likely sought refuge within these depths. Among the scribbles, Mark's heart skipped a beat as he noticed a crude drawing of a baseball diamond. It's like he was trying to make sense of everything, Mark whispered, moving closer, just like I did. Tom moved over to the opposite side of the chamber. "Mark! Over here!" he called, his voice echoing. Mark hurried over, and Tom pointed his flashlight toward a small alcove. There, huddled against the wall, was a boy, no more than 10 years old, his face streaked with dirt and fear. "Hey, it's okay," Mark said, kneeling down to appear less intimidating. "We're not here to hurt you. We're looking for you." The boy's eyes widened, and he pressed himself against the wall, clutching a worn baseball glove tightly to his chest. "Go away!" he shouted, his voice trembling. "Please, we just want to help. What's your name?" Tom asked gently. "Tyler," the boy replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Mark felt a rush of relief wash over him. "Tyler, we found your backpack. We know you've been living down here. You don't have to be alone anymore." The boy shook his head violently, tears welling in his eyes. "My dad told me to wait for him. He's coming back." Mark's heart sank. "Tyler, we can help you find your dad, but you have to trust us." "I'm not leaving!" Tyler yelled, panic setting in. "What if he comes back and I'm gone?" Tom took a step closer, his voice steady. "Tyler, we can't just leave you here. This isn't safe. We'll help you find your dad, but you need to come with us." Mark could see the internal struggle on the boy's face. He remembered feeling similar emotions after his son's death, the fear of moving on, of leaving behind what was once held dear. "Tyler, I understand what it's like to feel lost," Mark said softly. "But sometimes we have to take a step forward, even if it's scary. You don't have to carry this burden alone." Tyler looked at Mark, searching for sincerity in his eyes. "You really mean that?" "Yes," Mark replied, his voice firm but gentle. "We stand together in this. You can be brave, just like the players on your team. I believe in you." Slowly, Tyler's shoulders relaxed, and he nodded hesitantly. "Okay," he whispered, tears streaming down his cheeks. Tom extended his hand, and Mark followed suit. "Let's get you out of here, Tyler. You're safe now." As the boy took their hands, a weight lifted from Mark's heart. He felt a sense of connection forming, a bond forged in shared experiences of loss and longing. The three of them began to make their way back through the mine, the darkness no longer feeling as suffocating. Mark glanced down at Tyler, who was still clutching his baseball glove tightly. "You're a brave kid, you know that," he said, trying to provide comfort. "What position do you play?" "Shortstop," Tyler replied, a hint of pride creeping into his voice. "Best position on the field," Mark said, a smile breaking through. "I used to coach a little league team, you know. I've seen some great shortstops in my time." Tyler's eyes widened, curiosity replacing some of the fear. "Really? Did you coach a lot of kids?" "Yeah, I did, and they were all amazing. Some of them went on to play in high school," Mark replied, trying to lighten the mood. "I bet you could be one of them." As they reached the entrance of the mine, the fresh air hit them like a wave, invigorating and alive. Mark squinted against the sudden brightness, and the warmth of the sun felt like a long-lost embrace. "Let's get you some help, Tyler," Tom said, guiding the boy outside. As they stepped into the light, Mark felt a surge of hope. He turned back to look at the mine one last time, recognizing that it had served as a crucial turning point. It had brought him to Tyler, a connection he had desperately needed. Before they could proceed further, a voice called out from the entrance of the mine. It was the sheriff, flanked by deputies. "We got a report of a missing child," he exclaimed, rushing forward. Mark's heart raced again as he realized they were finally about to reunite Tyler with his father. "We found him!" Mark shouted, gesturing to Tyler, who was still holding onto his glove tightly. The sheriff knelt down, his expression softening as he looked at Tyler. "Hey there, buddy. We've been worried sick about you. Your dad has been looking everywhere." Tyler's eyes widened, and the realization washed over him. "My dad? He's here." "Yes, he is," the sheriff said, extending a hand to the boy. "Let's go find him." As they walked toward the sheriff's car, Mark felt a swell of emotion. He had faced his own past in the darkness of the mine, and now he was helping someone else emerge from their shadows. The sheriff drove them to the town center, where a small crowd had gathered. Amidst the worried faces, Mark spotted a man pacing anxiously, his face drawn and tired. Tyler's eyes lit up, and he broke free from the sheriff's hold, sprinting toward his father. "Dad!" he cried, his voice ringing with joy. The man turned, and his expression morphed from anxiety to sheer relief as he knelt down to meet his son. "Tyler, thank God you're safe." They embraced tightly, tears streaming down both their faces. Mark watched, his heart swelling with a mix of joy and sorrow. In that moment he felt a connection to them, a reminder that love could transcend even the deepest pain. "Thank you," the father said, looking up at Mark and Tom. "Thank you for bringing him home." Mark smiled, but he also felt the weight of his own loss still resting heavy on his heart. He would always carry the grief, but he now understood that sharing it could lead to healing, both for himself and for others. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the scene, Mark realized he had finally found a way to honor his son's memory. In helping Tyler, he had opened himself up to the possibility of connection once more, filled with hope that perhaps there was a way forward. "Maybe," he thought, "it's time to listen." As the families gathered, Mark felt a flicker of light guiding him through the darkness, illuminating a path toward healing, connection, and the promise of new beginnings. With the emotional reunion still unfolding, Mark stepped back, giving the family space, yet his heart felt full. Watching Tyler embrace his father was both uplifting and heart-wrenching. He realized in that moment how profoundly intertwined grief and joy could be. His own loss was still so fresh, yet witnessing this reunion filled a void he didn't know he had. Tom clapped a hand on Mark's shoulder. "You did a good thing today," he said, his tone steady and comforting. Finding him took courage. Thanks, Tom," Mark replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I just couldn't let another child feel alone like I did." As the joyous cries of relief echoed around him, Mark felt the warmth of community enveloping him. Nearby, Tyler's father was talking animatedly with the sheriff, his gratitude spilling out in waves. Mark caught snippets of their conversation, words like thankful and lost intertwining, and he felt the weight of his past begin to shift. More townsfolk began to gather, some taking pictures, others offering words of support. Mark could see the love and concern in their faces as they celebrated Tyler's return. It was a reminder that despite the darkness he sometimes felt, there was also light in community, in connection, and in shared experiences. "Are you ready to go home, Tyler?" his father asked, kneeling to meet the boy's gaze. Tyler nodded, that glint of hope slowly returning to his eyes. "Can I bring my glove?" he asked, his voice small. "Of course, buddy, it's yours," his father said, and Mark couldn't help but smile at the simple normalcy of it all. The companionship of a parent and child, the bond that was slowly being mended. Mark turned to Tom, who was watching the interaction with a knowing look. "You think he'll be okay?" Mark asked quietly. Tom nodded. "With the right support, he will be. It's going to take time, but he's got a loving father now, and that's an important first step, just like you." Mark felt as if Tom had reached into his heart and pulled out the very thoughts he had been wrestling with. It was true. Healing was a journey, and it was often a long one, but he had to believe that there was hope. Being here for Tyler had reminded him of the importance of connection, of speaking out, of not letting grief consume him. As the crowd began to disperse, Mark caught the eye of Tyler's father. The man approached him, gratitude emanating from every pore. "I can't thank you enough for what you did. I was so scared," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Mark nodded, feeling a swell of understanding between them. "I understand. I've lost someone too. It's never easy." He paused, allowing the weight of their shared grief to settle between them. "But you're not alone. You have your son back. That's what matters." Tyler's father wiped his eyes, managing a small smile. "I'm going to do everything I can to make it up to him. I promise." "That's all you can do," Mark said, clapping the man on the shoulder. "Just be there for him. It's what he needs most right now." As they shared a moment of silent understanding, Mark felt a shift inside him. Standing there, united in their shared experiences, he finally acknowledged that while loss would always be a part of his life, so too could healing and hope. The sun was setting low in the sky, casting an orange glow over the landscape. Mark took a deep breath, feeling a sense of closure settling in. The day had been long and filled with emotional turmoil, but it had also brought unexpected revelations and connections he hadn't anticipated. Before leaving, Mark made his way back to Tyler, who was still clutching his glove, beaming with happiness. "You're a great shortstop, Tyler," he said, kneeling beside the boy. "You keep practicing, and I'll bet you'll be the star of your team." "Really?" Tyler asked, his eyes wide with wonder. "Absolutely. Just remember, when you play for fun and play your best. That's what it's all about." Tyler nodded, a bright smile illuminating his face. "Will you come watch me play?" Mark felt a rush of emotion at the innocent request. "If I can, I'd love to." "Okay," Tyler exclaimed. "I'll show you all my cool moves." As Mark stepped away, he felt lighter than he had in years. Each step toward his truck felt like a step away from the shadows that had loomed over him for so long. He glanced back at the crowd, at Tyler and his father, and understood that life was about connections, the ones we build, the ones we mend, and the ones we cherish. As he drove away from the town, the weight of the past began to lift. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, ready to forge ahead. There was still a long road to healing, but he had taken the first step today. He had confronted the darkness, not just for himself, but for a boy who had been lost and needed to find his way back to the light. Mark turned up the radio, the familiar sounds of country music filling the cabin of his truck. He let the melodies wash over him, the lyrics resonating with the emotions that swirled inside. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with a brilliant palette of colors, he allowed himself to believe in the possibility of new beginnings, of healing, and of hope. Maybe, he thought, it's time to listen. And as he drove into the night, Mark felt the flicker of hope guiding him through, illuminating a path toward not just healing for himself, but also a newfound connection to those around him. It was a promise of new chapters, new relationships, and a new way of living that honored the past while embracing the future. In the days that followed Tyler's rescue, Mark found his life subtly transforming. The mine, once a haunting reminder of his own grief, had become a catalyst for healing. Each morning, as the sun rose over the Colorado horizon, it carried with it a weight of hope, illuminating a path he never thought he'd walk again. Mark kept in touch with Tyler's father, Derek, who reached out multiple times to express his gratitude. Their conversations were filled with appreciation, but also with a shared understanding of loss. Mark learned that Derek had struggled since his marriage ended, and Tyler's disappearance had pushed him to his limits. Hearing Derek's story resonated deeply with Mark, reminding him of his own challenges after losing his son. One Saturday morning, Mark decided to visit Derek and Tyler. He brought along an old baseball glove from his coaching days, hoping to share a piece of his past. As he drove through the winding roads of Colorado, he could feel his heart racing with anticipation. Derek welcomed him at the door, a warm smile breaking across his face. "Mark, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming by," he said, ushering Mark inside their modest home. The living room was filled with toys and baseball memorabilia, a clear indication of Tyler's passions. "Tyler's been talking about you non-stop," Derek continued, looking genuinely pleased. "I think he's excited to show you his collection of baseball cards." As if on cue, Tyler dashed into the room, his face lighting up at the sight of Mark. "You came! You really came!" he exclaimed, and Mark felt a rush of warmth at the boy's enthusiasm. "Of course I did. I brought something for you," Mark replied, pulling out the glove and presenting it to Tyler. "It's not brand new, but it's got a lot of memories in it. I hope you like it." Tyler's eyes widened as he took the glove, cradling it like a treasure. "Wow, thanks, Mr. Mark. This is awesome," he beamed, slipping it on and flexing his fingers. Derek watched with a smile, his eyes glimmering with gratitude. "You've really made a difference in our lives. Tyler talks about you like you're his hero." Mark chuckled lightly, but inside a bittersweet ache lingered. He had never been anyone's hero, not since the day his son had died. "I'm just glad you both are okay," he said softly. "But you both teach me a lot more than I can teach you." Over the next hour, they shared stories and laughter, a sense of camaraderie blossoming between the three of them. Tyler showed Mark his baseball cards, animatedly recounting the stats of each player. As he spoke, Mark felt a warmth spreading through him, a reminder of the joy that could be found even amid grief. Later, as they moved outside to play catch, Mark found himself lost in the moment, tossing the ball back and forth with Tyler. The boys' laughter filled the air, and for the first time in a long while, Mark felt a sense of normalcy take hold. Under the vast Colorado sky with the sun shining down, he felt a flicker of hope for the future. "Mr. Mark, can you teach me how to throw a curveball?" Tyler asked, his eyes wide with excitement. "Absolutely, but first you've got to start with the basics," Mark replied. As he guided Tyler through the motions, he could see the boy soaking it all in, eager to impress. When it was finally Tyler's turn to bat, Mark felt a rush of anticipation. He watched as Tyler stepped up to the plate, gripping the bat tightly. Mark held his breath, willing the boy to succeed. The pitcher threw the ball, and Tyler swung, missing the first pitch. Mark could see the frustration flash across his face, but he remembered their talks. "Stay focused, Tyler. You've got this." Tyler nodded, taking a deep breath as he prepared for the next pitch. Mark's heart raced as the ball soared through the air. Tyler swung again, making contact this time. The crack of the bat echoed through the field, and the ball flew toward center field. "Run, Tyler, run!" Mark shouted, his voice rising with excitement as Tyler sprinted down the base path with determination. The crowd erupted in applause as he rounded third base and headed for home. He dove across the plate and the cheers crescendoed around him. Mark jumped up, his heart swelling with pride. He had witnessed a moment of triumph, one that not only belonged to Tyler, but also to himself. They had both grown, learned, and forged a path through the darkness together. After the game, as the families gathered to celebrate, Mark felt the weight of his past slowly dissipating. He knew that while he would always carry the memories of his son, he was no longer trapped by the pain. He had found a way to honor the love he once had, now shared in new connections. In the weeks that followed, Mark continued to support Tyler and Derek, attending games and practices, celebrating victories and comforting losses. The bond they shared deepened, turning into a friendship that marked a turning point in Mark's life. One evening, as Mark sat on his porch watching the sunset, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. The memories of his son still lingered, but instead of sorrow, they were now intertwined with warmth and gratitude. With each passing day, he learned to embrace the joys of life once more, and in doing so, honor the love he had for his son. As the sky turned to twilight, Mark smiled as he thought about the journey ahead. The road to healing was long, but with every small step, he was reclaiming his life. He had faced the darkness, and in doing so, had found a path to light again. One day, while driving to visit Tyler and Derek, Mark felt the familiar pangs of nostalgia wash over him as he passed by the old mine. It stood silent, a reminder of a time filled with suffering, yet now it felt different. It was no longer just a source of pain, it had led him to moments of joy. He decided to stop for a moment and take a deep breath, reflecting on the journey he had undertaken. As he stood there, the wind rustling through the trees, Mark thought about how much had changed in such a short time. He had moved from a place of darkness into one of light, forged through connection and shared experiences. He smiled, a profound sense of gratitude filling him. Later that week, Mark received a call from Derek. "Hey Mark, how about joining us for a barbecue this Saturday? I want to thank you properly for everything you've done for us." "Sounds great, I'd love to," Mark replied, feeling a sense of excitement bubble up within him. Saturday arrived, and Mark drove to Derek's house, bringing along a homemade pie. As he parked, he could already smell the delicious aroma drifting from the grill. When he entered the backyard, he was greeted by laughter and the sound of sizzling meat. "Mark, you made it!" Tyler exclaimed, running up to him with a big hug. "I'm so glad you're here!" "Wouldn't miss it for the world," Mark said, ruffling Tyler's hair. Derek approached with a grin, holding out a plate. "We're grilling burgers and hot dogs. Grab a plate and let's eat." As they gathered around the table, Mark felt the warmth of community enveloping him. The atmosphere was casual and joyful, filled with laughter and stories. He listened as Derek shared tales of Tyler's antics on the baseball field, and he could see the pride in the father's eyes. After they finished eating, Tyler jumped up, his energy infectious. "Can we play catch again?" he asked eagerly. "Absolutely," Mark replied, excitement coursing through him. They moved to the side yard, where a small grassy area awaited. As they threw the ball back and forth, Mark couldn't help but feel a sense of fulfillment. Each throw served as a reminder of the healing power of connection, of how far they had all come since that dark day in the mine. Tyler's laughter filled the air, echoing back to Mark's own childhood memories. He recalled the joy he once felt coaching his son, and in this moment he felt that joy return, mixed with the bittersweet memory of what he had lost. "Okay, Tyler, let's see that curveball," Mark encouraged. Tyler concentrated, his small face set in determination. He threw the ball, and Mark caught it, nodding approvingly. "That was almost there, just a little more twist on the wrist." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Mark realized that this was more than just a game of catch. It was about building bridges, mending hearts, and creating new memories. He was no longer just a bystander in his own life. He was actively participating in something beautiful. As they wrapped up their game, they returned to the barbecue area, where Derek was cleaning up. "You two looked great out there," he said, smiling. "Tyler's really coming into his own as a player." "Thanks, Derek. He's got a natural talent," Mark replied, feeling a swell of pride for both Tyler and himself. After a while, they sat around the fire pit, roasting marshmallows and enjoying the warmth of the flames. As the night wore on, Mark felt a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced in years. The laughter, the camaraderie, and the shared stories all intertwined to create a sense of family he had thought he'd lost. "Mark, I want to know about your son," Tyler said suddenly, his innocent curiosity filling the air. Mark hesitated, but he remembered the bond he had formed with Tyler and Derek. "His name was Jake," he began, his voice steady. "He loved baseball, just like you do. He was really good, too. We spent a lot of time together at the field." "What happened to him?" Tyler asked, his gaze earnest. Mark took a deep breath, feeling the familiar ache but also a sense of relief in sharing. "He passed away a few years ago. It was hard for me, and it took me a long time to heal. But I know he would have wanted me to keep living and find joy again." He looked at Tyler, feeling a connection that ran deeper than words. Tyler nodded thoughtfully, and Mark could see the understanding in his eyes. "I'm sorry," the boy said quietly. "Thank you, Tyler. But remember, it's important to hold on to the memories while also making new ones. You're doing that every time you play, and I'm proud of you," Mark replied, a smile breaking through the sadness. As the fire crackled and the stars began to twinkle overhead, Mark felt a renewed sense of hope. He had faced the darkness of his past, and although it would never fully go away, he had found a way to embrace life again. The next day, as he packed up to leave, Mark felt a comforting weight settle in his heart. He had built something special with Derek and Tyler, a connection that filled the void left by his loss. He knew that while grief would always be a part of him, it no longer defined him. As he drove away from Derek's house, he looked in the rearview mirror and saw Tyler waving goodbye, his smile bright against the backdrop of their home. Mark couldn't help but smile back. He had embarked on a journey of healing, not just for himself, but for a young boy who was learning to navigate his own path. In that moment, Mark understood that life was about connections, the ones we forge, the ones we mend, and the ones that fill our hearts with hope. He was ready to embrace what lay ahead, knowing that with each step he was finding his way back to the light. As the days turned into weeks, Mark's life continued to transform following Tyler's rescue. The mine, once a haunting reminder of his grief, had become a catalyst for healing. Each morning brought a sense of hope as the sun rose over the Colorado horizon, illuminating a path he never thought he'd walk again. Mark maintained his connection with Tyler's father, Derek. Their conversations became a source of comfort, filled with shared experiences of loss and the journey of parenthood. Mark learned that Derek had struggled since his marriage ended, and Tyler's disappearance had pushed him to his limits. Hearing Derek's story resonated deeply with Mark, reminding him of his own challenges after losing his son. One Saturday morning, Mark decided to visit Derek and Tyler. He brought along an old baseball glove from his coaching days, hoping to share a piece of his past with them. As he drove through the winding roads of Colorado, excitement bubbled within him, a welcome change from the heaviness he had often carried. Derek welcomed him with a broad smile, clearly pleased to see his friend. "Mark, we've been looking forward to your visit," he said, leading Mark into their cozy home. The living room was filled with toys and baseball memorabilia, a clear sign of Tyler's passions. "Tyler's been talking about you non-stop," Derek continued. "I think he's excited to show you his baseball card collection." Just then, Tyler dashed into the room, his face lighting up at the sight of Mark. "You came! You really came!" he exclaimed, and Mark felt a rush of warmth. "Of course, I brought you something special," Mark replied, pulling out the glove. "It's not brand new, but it has a lot of memories." Tyler's eyes widened as he took the glove, cradling it with awe. "Wow, thanks, Mr. Mark. This is awesome," he beamed, immediately slipping it on. As they shared stories and laughter, a sense of camaraderie blossomed among the three. Tyler excitedly showed Mark his baseball cards, recounting the stats of each player. Mark felt a warmth spreading through him, a reminder of the joy that could be found even amid grief. Later, they moved outside to play catch. Mark tossed the ball back and forth with Tyler, feeling a sense of normalcy take hold. Under the vast Colorado sky, he felt a flicker of hope for the future. "Mr. Mark, can you teach me how to throw a curveball?" Tyler asked eagerly. "Absolutely. Let's start with the basics," Mark replied, guiding Tyler through the motions. He could see the boy soaking it all in, eager to impress. When it was finally Tyler's turn to bat, Mark watched with bated breath as the young player stepped up to the plate. The pitcher threw the ball, and Tyler swung, missing the first pitch. "Stay focused, Tyler. You've got this," Mark called out. Tyler nodded, preparing for the next pitch. When he hit it, the crack of the bat resonated through the field, and the ball soared toward the outfield. "Run, Tyler! Run!" Mark shouted, excitement rising as Tyler sprinted toward home plate. The crowd erupted in applause as Tyler dove across the plate, laughter and cheers filling the air. Mark felt a swell of pride. He had witnessed a moment of triumph that belonged to both of them. They had grown together, forged a path through darkness, and created new memories. After the game, as families gathered to celebrate, Mark felt the weight of his past beginning to lift. He knew he would always carry the memories of his son, but he was no longer trapped by pain. He had found a way to honor the love he once had, now shared in new connections. In the weeks that followed, Mark continued to support Tyler and Derek, attending games and practices, celebrating victories and comforting losses. The bond they shared deepened, evolving into a friendship that marked a turning point in Mark's life. One evening, while sitting on his porch, Mark received a call from Derek. "Hey Mark, we're having a little team party for Tyler's baseball group next Saturday. I'd love it if you could join us." "Count me in. What can I bring?" Mark asked, feeling a sense of excitement. "Just bring yourself and, if you want, a dessert," Derek replied, his tone light. As Saturday approached, Mark decided to bake a batch of chocolate chip cookies, something he and his son used to make together. The familiar scents filled his house, and as he mixed the ingredients, he felt a wave of nostalgia wash over him, but this time it was accompanied by warmth rather than sadness. When the day of the party arrived, Mark brought along the cookies. As he approached Derek's house, the sounds of laughter and excitement spilled into the yard. He felt alive, vibrant, a gathering of families celebrating their children and a love for the game. "Mark, you made it!" Tyler shouted, running over with a big smile. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," Mark replied, ruffling Tyler's hair. As they gathered around the table, Mark felt the warmth of community enveloping him. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and stories, and he listened as Derek shared tales of Tyler's antics on the baseball field. After everyone enjoyed the barbecue, Tyler ran up to Mark, his eyes shining. "Can we practice again next week?" "Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it," Mark replied, feeling a deep sense of connection. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the gathering, Mark reflected on how far they had come. The laughter, the camaraderie, and the genuine connections reminded him of the importance of nurturing relationships. That night, as he settled into bed, Mark reflected on the events of the day. The joy, the connections made, and the shared experiences filled him with gratitude. He had turned a dark chapter into one of light and hope. He understood that healing was not just about moving on, it was about embracing life and finding solace in the relationships built along the way. With the dawn of each new day, Mark felt more ready to face the future. He realized that happiness could coexist with pain, creating a new narrative filled with love, laughter, and the promise of tomorrow. Embracing Tyler and Derek had opened his heart in ways he never thought possible, and as he drifted off to sleep, he felt a sense of peace washing over him, knowing he was no longer alone in his journey. As the summer days rolled on, the bond between Mark, Derek, and Tyler flourished. Mark had become an integral part of their lives, and every weekend was filled with laughter, baseball, and the kind of warmth that only comes from shared experiences. Each moment spent with them was a reminder that while his past was marked by profound loss, the present offered a chance for connection and joy. One evening, while sitting in his living room, Mark received a text from Derek. "Hey Mark, we're planning a camping trip next weekend. Want to join us?" Mark felt a jolt of excitement. Camping had always been one of his favorite pastimes, filled with starlit nights and the sounds of nature, but it had been years since he had last gone. "Absolutely. Where are we headed?" he replied, his heart racing at the thought of spending more quality time with Tyler and Derek. "Just a few hours away to Pine Creek. It's a great spot for fishing and hiking," Derek texted back. Tyler is really looking forward to it. The anticipation of the trip filled Mark with a sense of purpose. He spent the week gathering supplies, reminiscing about the camping trips he'd taken with his son. As he packed the cooler and rolled up sleeping bags, he felt a bittersweet ache, a reminder of the past, but also the promise of new memories to be made. On the day of the trip, Mark arrived at Derek's house early to help load up the car. Tyler was bouncing with excitement, his energy contagious. "Are you ready, Mr. Mark?" he asked, his voice brimming with enthusiasm. "Ready as ever. Let's hit the road," Mark replied, a smile spreading across his face as he watched Tyler help Derek pack the trunk. The drive to Pine Creek was filled with lively chatter, laughter, and the occasional song on the radio. Mark felt a warmth in his heart as he sat between Derek and Tyler, reminiscing about their favorite baseball moments and discussing what they hoped to see during their camping adventure. Upon arriving at Pine Creek, the beauty of the landscape took Mark's breath away. Towering trees surrounded them, and the gentle sound of water flowing in the creek was soothing. As they set up camp, Mark felt a sense of peace wash over him. This was where he belonged, among friends, surrounded by nature. Once the tents were pitched and the campsite organized, Mark and Tyler headed to the creek to explore. The sun beamed down, and Tyler skipped rocks across the water, his laughter ringing through the air. Mark joined in, showing Tyler how to find the perfect stones for skipping. "It's all in the wrist, kid," he said, demonstrating as he tossed a flat stone across the water. "You've got it!" Tyler cheered as he tried again, this time launching the stone with more precision. After some time by the creek, they returned to camp, where Derek was preparing lunch over the fire. The smell of grilled hot dogs filled the air, and Tyler's eyes lit up with excitement. "Can we roast marshmallows later?" Tyler asked, his face hopeful. "Absolutely, we'll make s'mores," Derek promised, tossing Tyler a hot dog. After lunch, they ventured out for a hike, exploring the trails that wound through the towering trees. Mark felt invigorated as they trekked deeper into the wilderness, the fresh air filling his lungs. He led the way, sharing snippets of information about the local wildlife and the beauty of nature. "Look, Tyler, that's a deer over there," Mark pointed as they spotted the gentle creature grazing in a small clearing. "Wow, it's so cool," Tyler whispered, his eyes wide with wonder. Mark smiled, knowing that these experiences would be etched in Tyler's memory forever. As twilight approached, they returned to their campsite, laughter filling the space as they recounted the day's adventures. Derek prepared a fire, and soon the flames crackled, casting a warm glow around them. "All right, let's get those marshmallows going," Derek announced, handing Tyler a stick. Tyler expertly speared a marshmallow and held it over the flame, watching intently as it began to brown. "This is the best camping trip ever," he exclaimed, his excitement infectious. Mark watched the boy, a sense of fulfillment washing over him. He had not only helped Tyler find joy in baseball, but in life itself. This camping trip was more than just an escape. It was a way for Mark to rediscover the happiness that had eluded him for so long. As they sat around the fire, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories, Mark felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. He glanced at Derek, who was smiling as he watched his son, and realized how much their friendship had grown. They were now a family of sorts, bound by their shared experiences and the healing power of connection. After the s'mores were devoured, Tyler leaned back on his hands, gazing up at the stars. "Look at all the stars, Mr. Mark. There are so many." Mark looked up, amazed at the brilliant display above them. "You're right, Tyler. It's beautiful. You know, stars remind us that even when it's dark, there's still light up there." "Yeah, just like when you helped me with my curveball," Tyler said, excitement bubbling in his voice. "Exactly. We all have our own stars to reach for," Mark replied, feeling a sense of pride swell within him. He realized that Tyler was not just reaching for stars in baseball, but also in life, learning, growing, and forging his own path. As the fire crackled and the night deepened, Mark felt a deep sense of peace wash over him. He had faced the darkness of his past and embraced the light of the present. The journey was ongoing, but for the first time, he felt hopeful about the future. As the stars twinkled above them, Mark knew that he had found a way to honor his son by being present for another boy, guiding him in finding joy and connection. In the heart of the wilderness, surrounded by laughter, warmth, and friendship, Mark had rediscovered himself, and in doing so, he had learned that healing was not a destination, but a journey to be shared with others. As dawn broke over Pine Creek, the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, casting a warm glow over the campsite. Mark awoke to the sounds of birds chirping and the soft rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. He stretched, feeling grateful for the peacefulness surrounding him. This camping trip was more than just an escape. It had become a significant chapter in his journey toward healing. "Mr. Mark, come see the sunrise," Tyler called, his voice bubbling with excitement. Mark quickly got dressed and joined him outside. The sky was painted in hues of pink and orange, a breathtaking sight that made Mark's heart soar. "Wow, it's beautiful," he said, taking a deep breath of fresh morning air. "It's the best view ever," Tyler exclaimed. "Can we have breakfast now? I want to eat before we go fishing." "Absolutely. Let's see what Derek has cooking," Mark replied, feeling joy in Tyler's enthusiasm. At the campfire, Derek was preparing pancakes, and the smell of fresh coffee wafted through the air. As they sat together enjoying breakfast, Mark felt a profound sense of belonging. They were a family, united by shared experiences and growing love. After breakfast, they geared up for fishing. Tyler could hardly contain his excitement. "I hope I catch the biggest fish," he said, eyes sparkling. "I bet you will," Mark encouraged, feeling warmth swell in his chest. They made their way to the creek, where Mark shared tips on fishing. "It's not just about catching fish, it's about enjoying nature," he said, casting his line into the water. Tyler nodded, concentrating hard on his own line. Laughter filled the air as Tyler shouted every time he felt a tug, even if it was just a small fish. As the sun climbed higher, they finally caught a few fish, and Tyler's pride was palpable. "Look, I did it," he exclaimed, holding up his catch. "Great job, champ," Mark replied with enthusiasm. As they returned to camp, Derek began to prepare the fish they had caught. They cooked together, Mark feeling fulfilled with each shared task, every laugh, and every moment. Later that evening, as they gathered around the fire, Mark felt a sense of contentment. The day had been filled with laughter and connection, a stark contrast to the loneliness he had once known. He shared anecdotes from his own childhood, interweaving memories of his son. Tyler listened intently, his eyes reflecting the flames. "I want to be a great fisherman and a great baseball player just like you," he said, determination in his voice. "You're already on your way, Tyler. Just remember to enjoy the journey," Mark replied, gratitude swelling within him. As the stars twinkled overhead, Mark looked up, feeling at peace. He had faced the darkness of his past, found a way to honor his son, and discovered new joys in life. The journey was ongoing, but he felt ready to embrace whatever came next. Surrounded by laughter, friendship, and warmth, Mark understood that healing was not a solitary path, but one enriched by the connections we cultivate. He felt grateful for the journey that had brought him here to Pine Creek, where new memories were being created beneath the stars.